Mike Schultz, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on here. I know we talked a few years ago for the documentary I was doing on the Smiths, and it's good to have you back on.
Yeah, that was good. That was a great documentary.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was just looking through your career and so 84, you're a senior. 84 was a crazy year in college wrestling. I still don't understand how Chesbro was let go at the end of that year. That
Yeah,
was
he was coach of the year that year, and then got axed.
and he had beaten Iowa in that year and the previous year in the dual meet.
Yeah, yep.
Wow. Who were you wrestling against Iowa back in those days?
Um, let's see. I wrestled. Kenny and I both wrestled the brothers from California.
Kistler?
Hisslers, yeah, big, strong. About beat me in the duel. Actually, it was a close match in the duel. Yeah, tough guy.
And you mentioned Kenny Monday. I mean, that's just one of your teammates. You're there with John Smith and obviously Leroy Smith at the beginning, and man, just so many guys. But let's go back to the beginning for you. Tell me about like your childhood growing up in Tahlequah.
Um, Grew up kind of in a rural setting. Tahlequah wasn't that big at the time. They didn't even have any kind of youth wrestling until I was in fourth grade. A guy named Bill Gunther started wrestling there. He had polio. He learned from he loved the sport, but he learned wrestling from Bobby Douglas's photo book. His picture, if you've ever seen that, that's where he learned his wrestling, and great motivator, uh, uh, super involved with each kid. Just I don't know. He was just he was consumed by the sport. Great guy, but he had polio. He was a Golden Gloves boxer. Yeah, weighed about probably 280 pounds. Big guy. Yeah.
And so he learned from a book.
He learned from the Bobby Douglas picture book. If you've ever seen that.
I got to get it for the library here. That's like a piece of wrestling history.
Yeah, yeah. He showed, he'd had the tape on the walls showing his Bobby's steps and kind of in time and without video, but you could see the steps and where he was going, the distance he moved. Yeah, it was kind of neat.
So how did you get looped up with this guy?
Uh, when I was in fourth grade, he went to all the elementary schools and passed out a flyer that anybody interested in wanting to wrestle. And that's how I got. I was like, I'm gonna try this. Got hooked.
Were your parents athletes?
My dad played baseball and football in high school. Actually, he turned down a couple of scholarships to go to college and play football, but I asked him why one time, and at the time, which would have been in the '60s, uh, he said, "Well, OU didn't offer him a scholarship, and he figured he must not be very good if they didn't offer him a scholarship."
High standards.
Yeah,
Jeez. Can you imagine that now?
yeah,
And he was a vet as well, right? That's kind of how you
right,
got in your
right,
career path.
sure.
Wow. So how does it go from fourth grade? You know, you're learning from your coach, and then you get to high school. Are you wrestling a lot of tournaments in between that there, or what was like the season like back then?
Well, back then for the little kids, it was just like it is now. There was a tournament every weekend, and you just went. But there was no freestyle. I didn't do any freestyle whatsoever till high school. Yeah, ninth grade.
Yeah, I forgot now that you say that Oklahoma was probably one of the most organized states for youth wrestling back then.
Right. Yeah, it was. It was every weekend once season started, and then uh, got on a junior high. I had the junior high and high school program is really well organized, and you would have, depending on what grade you were in, you'd have a practice during the day for your athletics, and then go back after school and finish up with, say, if you were in junior high in the ninth grade, or In the ninth grade, either after school, and high school was all after school or last hour after school.
So you'd have like a practice during like a gym class?
Yeah, well, it was your athletics. So seventh and eighth grade, you would go in like third hour, which the junior high was about half a mile from the gym. So you'd have to run down there to the gym where we worked out for wrestling, and then practice for 30, 45 minutes and uh, shower up and run back to school.
Wow, it's cool to have it that involved though in the school system.
Right. At the time, they were, it was pretty well organized.
And I had read that one of your goals was to go to Oklahoma State. You really loved Okie State. What was it about the Cowboys over OU that kind of won your heart?
Well, then at the time, OSU was number one. My dad graduated from vet school there, so Okie State fans to start with. But just following wrestling, Oklahoma State was dominant in the '60s and '70s, early '70s, and had missed a couple of chances at national titles by one guy in the middle and late '70s. So, yeah, they were. I was just coming on to their little stronghold.
Now, were you one of the thousands of kids during that era that watched the 72 Olympics and watched Wayne
Oh
Wells and
yeah,
Gable?
oh yeah, sure, yeah.
How big was
Wayne
Wayne
Wells,
Wells at that time?
yeah, Wayne Wells was. He was my idol. He was probably a big inspiration because you got a guy from that was 3 hours down the road from my house won the Olympics. I was like, dang. I mean, kind of made it set home. Somebody
Really?
from your own state is like, yeah,
That's that's like the beginning of the modern era of Olympic wrestling for a lot of people now. And you look at that team, you had Gable, then you had the Petersons, you had obviously Wayne Wells. I mean, there's a lot of guys I think who's the guy from Oregon? People love this guy. I can't think of his name. Um, Little guy. But that whole team had a bunch of icons on it and really was a huge spark for wrestling across the country. It's cool to hear that, even out in Oklahoma, Wayne Wells had that much of an impact when Gable was probably bigger in other parts of the country.
oh yeah, Gable was still big, but it was like, when they're that far away, it's like, yeah, but when you talk about somebody just not very far from your own home, kind of sits home with you.
Yeah. He kind of reminds me of your path a little bit because was he going to law school while going through the Olympics and all that? Or
Yeah,
was
I
that
think he did. Yeah, I think he graduated law school after he'd won the Olympics, but he was in law school at the time.
crazy? So when you're going through high school, when did you start to have like some success and really see that you could take wrestling to the college level?
I got little bits and pieces of success, probably by the time I was in sixth or seventh grade, and then, of course, I had got knocked down to my knees, humbled, like we all do, uh, along the way. But by the time I was in ninth grade, I felt like I could compete with most people. And then that's when we started freestyle, and I got humbled. We would go to Iowa City at the time, which was the Federation Nationals, or what Fargo is now, and get humbled. But I had teammates at the time, even Kenny Mundy, Leo Bailey was like a double champ one or two times. There was a lot of guys on our team that were good, that were getting national recognition. I wasn't, but they were, and aspired to do better.
So after your freshman year is your first time going to the quote unquote junior nationals.
Yeah. It was all one division at that time.
Wow, that must have that was some stiff competition then to have
Oh yeah, it
everyone.
was rugged. It was rough.
Who do you remember who won your weight or who some of the guys were at your weight?
I don't even remember at this point. Um, um,
But just
I
to
don't.
go would be a big deal and just kind of get out of state and see all those guys and
Oh yeah, we used to get in vans, and we would head up to Iowa City. we'd stop along the way and stay at people's homes and um, have duels. So we took two teams. One team would probably go up through Missouri and Illinois, and one team would go up through Kansas and Iowa, and have 2 or 3 duels along the way before we got to Iowa City.
Duels with who?
With
Just the local
they'd
team?
organize duels with. They'd put together a team in towns, and I think I stayed with Morning Stars. B. Ryan Morningstar's parents and grandparents 1 year, 2 or 3 days. Yeah, we just stay with families and have duels and get out, take off the next day, and go to another town and do the same thing.
That's all. That's like a little summer tour. That's
Yeah, it
awesome.
was. It was.
Man, it's funny because I was reading a story of you. This is fast forwarding a couple years. You're at Oklahoma State now, but you guys have been on like a 10-day road trip with Chesbro around Christmas
yeah.
time.
Yeah, he was notorious for that especially over Christmas break.
Where would you guys go?
Well, we go like Midlands or I think the Iowa State started a Midwest Open, but we get on the road and we just head up through the Midwest, maybe Indiana. I remember spending New Year's Eve in Terre Haute, Indiana 1 year. I think that was my senior year. Yeah.
Wow. And then what's the so you guys are and not to mention the summer. Did you go on a lot of summer camps with Chesbro as well?
No, I usually went to summer school, but a lot of
Okay.
guys went and did camp. I did the camps in Stillwater, which at the time I think they'd have like 3 or 4 weeks. Nowadays it's kind of a 2 week compact in and out. But back then they started doing camps, and after Stillwater, they 1 year we went to Montana. That was after my senior year, I think, and did one up there. Pennsylvania, California, Pennsylvania. They used to have a camp out there. I think we did one in Ohio 1 year. Yeah, they had a camp tour of about 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and counting Stillwater, you could stay pretty busy.
Yeah, I remember hearing from like Corey Bays and John and all those guys talking about how they'd literally be on the road, like you said, 8 weeks. And not only are they doing the, helping out with the clinicians and being, camp clinicians, but they're also working out at the same time. So they're basically wrestling like 8 weeks straight throughout the summer.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
We did, you'd always have a partner. And like the year Leroy was trying to make the Olympic team, we'd work out. I worked out with him quite a bit that summer in Stillwater. But yeah, we had you had workouts along. I mean, it wasn't mandatory or anything. You just did.
Right. What was the story where you guys were coming back from like a 10-day road trip and Chesbro made you guys like work out or something? Do you remember this one?
Yeah. So we've been on this road trip from hell, and then we get back to Stillwater. It's like I don't know, 5:30 in the morning. Oh, we drove through a roadblock. We drove through a blizzard roadblock. Got out and moved the dang roadblocks. Drove through it. Drove all night, and got back to Stillwater at 5:30. And everybody's getting up. It's like, oh man, I cannot wait to get home. Sleep in my own bed, and by the time they threw the bus in park, Tommy says, "Okay, everybody, get in here and get your workout gear on." And we're just like, "Oh man, you gotta be kidding me! You gotta be kidding me!"
What was a Chesbro workout like back then?
A lot of technique. I mean, a lot of technique, a lot of attention to detail. Yeah.
I hear from everyone just religious repetition drilling, like
Oh
just
yeah.
over and over.
Yep. call you back in, fix this, fix this. Yeah, he paid attention to detail when it came to technique.
And like overall, how would you describe like his demeanor and his approach as a coach?
Oh, I think it was good. I know that guy was under a lot of pressure from alumni. Um, he he'd missed a couple opportunities. You know, when Leroy Smith was a sophomore, um, I think he was seeded 2 or 3 in the country, and he didn't place. He got beat first or second round, I think. And back then it was single elimination. So if your guy doesn't make it to the semis, you're out of the tournament. Well, that year we lost by a slim margin, not very many points, and Leroy makes it to the semis. They win the national tournament. That was probably 77, probably in there. And another near miss. Well, my senior year, John was a true freshman. He was seeded second, I think, and he got beat and put out. So we lost by a margin that was probably going to be pretty close. We may not have made it up with just John, but we had some other guys that didn't wrestle up to their seeds, but that happens every national tournament.
Yeah, I'm pulling up that 84 bracket because I do remember the team score being Razor 123-98. So, you know, John alone probably wouldn't have done it, but that would have gotten you guys pretty close.
Yeah, it would have been close, but yeah, we had a couple others that didn't wrestle up to their seeds, but it happens. Those guys still placed.
Yeah, I'm looking here. Like Mark Perry was seeded third. He took a sixth, but again, even just getting on the All-American stand is obviously a feat in itself. And so Chesbro had a couple of near misses. How did he come into your life as a recruiter? Like, did you call him, or was he coming down to visit you? Or
No, actually, Paul Martin was the assistant at the time. He was the national runner-up at Oklahoma State. His brother Dave wrestled at Iowa State. He was national champ. He was on the team with Gable. And Paul started contacting me initially. Probably into my junior year. And I think he saw me at a freestyle tournament at maybe it was the state freestyle tournament qualifier for Iowa City or Federation Nationals. And then I talked with him a little bit, and then Tommy got involved. Probably I talked to him 2 or 3 times my senior year throughout the season. He'd come to a tournament, which Stillwater, his son wrestled, and then well, all his sons wrestled, but Doug was my age, and he would be at the tournament and call me over to visit with him. Yeah, I talked to him 2 or 3 times.
And then was it pretty cut and dry for you to go there, or were you looking at anywhere else?
You know what? Pretty much at the time, I thought if Oklahoma State didn't recruit me, I was like my dad. I was like, if Oklahoma State didn't recruit me, I didn't want to wrestle in college. And in truth, in fact, I probably only had NAIA schools talking to me other than OSU.
You guys, like I said, a high standard in the Sheets household. For if it's not Oklahoma State, it's no one. That's at the time, like you said, one of the top 2 for sure. Now, a lot of people look at your high school career and kind of wonder how you weren't recruited a little bit more, because you were the only one to beat Kenny Monday in high school. And I know you guys had a couple matches in high school, but what do you remember about that scrap with the great Kenny Monday?
It was good. It was And actually we tied. That's back when they didn't have a tiebreaker. It was in a duel.
It was a tie. Okay.
Yep. Tied. We tied in duel at Booker T, the high school that Kenny wrestled at, and back then it was a pretty packed gym. Just maybe anticipation of the match, and it just I don't remember much about the match other than I got a late takedown to tie it up, and I was a little short on riding time. I think I had like 58 or 9 seconds riding time um, to win the match. And then we wrestled again um, at the Yukon tournament in the finals later that year. And he beat me. I don't know what the score was, 6-5 or 5-6. I got greedy and tried to pin him. He reversed me to my back.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you wrestled him a second time, and obviously, I mean, we're talking Kenny Monday here. So I'm just curious, what was his reputation back at that time?
Oh, unbeatable. Yeah. No, I wrestled with him in the summers, going to Iowa City. Like I said, I had those guys were way up here on a pedestal as far as competitors, and like I say, Leo Bailey was he was younger than me, but he kind of stood out the same way. Bar freestyle and Greco for Leo.
And Kenny had a bunch of brothers that were stud wrestlers as well, right? Were they
Yeah,
around
they
during that
wrestled at
time?
OU. They both wrestled at OU. They were tough. And actually, Booker T was a great high school program in North Tulsa. We had teammates, Thomas Landrum. He was All American. He was from Kenny's high school. Greg Hawkins. He was All American Oklahoma State from Kenny's high school. And they all had, I think Greg might have had a brother that wrestled at Iowa. No, Greg might have wrestled at Iowa State for a year. But they had brothers wrestling. They were tough.
They had a legendary coach there who's, I can't remember his name, but Hall of Fame type coach in both wrestling and football, from what I remember.
Yeah, he was a disciplinarian, I think, and kept those kids in line. And he took the effort. He was one of those guys that he's going to make sure you got to practice with. Having a ride was not an excuse because he would go pick you up.
Yeah, and like you said, that North Tulsa area at the time, they were producing like NFL athletes, just stud teams across the board.
Oh yeah, football, basketball, wrestling. Yeah, it was tough.
And when you finally got to Oklahoma State, did you redshirt?
No, no.
Wow. It was just crazy because people don't realize you came in, thought maybe you would wrestle 150, and I can't remember Scover, Ricky Stewart was there. Then at 158, one of the other ones was there. So you go 167. Was that was that wrestling up for you, or was that about your natural weight?
That was I'd probably weigh out of practice 62, 60, something like that. Yeah.
Wow. And to compete as a true freshman is pretty, pretty amazing, and probably not for you, which is why it happened, but just from an outsider's perspective, what was the transition like for you coming into that cowboy room?
Oh, it was miserable. Miserable. I used to get the heck beat out of me daily. My first workout, which was unofficial workout, we had the Colvin Center, which was the gym for all students on campus. We had a wrestling room over there, and unofficial practice was there, and you go work out. It was basically you just grab a partner and we're rolling around. But my first practice was with Leroy and Stephen Barrett.
Oh
Stephen
boy.
Barrett was a national champion at Oklahoma State, and they used to beat the crap out of me for about 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, unmercifully. I'd come back to the room. My roommate was Mark Perry. I'd come back to the room. My head be just beat up. He'd be on the phone with his girlfriend at the time, which is John Smith's sister, Kathy. He'd say, "How'd you do?" I said, "How the hell does it look like I did? I just got beat up."
Mark Perry is such a he's an awesome guy and just a real like fighting spirit. Did he have that back then?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We his nickname is the Book of Knowledge, the Wrestling Book of Knowledge. We used to another roommate of mine later on the next year from my sophomore year. Um, we'd get Mark would memorize the amateur wrestling news box scores. I mean, I'm talking about box scores in the back, which once a month it came out and gave results of all the matches. We'd look at a match that said Holy Cross and William and Mary, and I'd say, "I can't believe so and so beat so and so," from Holy Cross, and he'd be like, "That's bull crap. He beat him 6-5," and I'm like, "We're talking about 30 or 40 box scores in the back of that thing." He knew every match.
Wow. And he was already dating John's sister at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it. Yeah, no, and obviously Leroy stayed on to coach, and the whole '84 Olympic saga. You were a senior, so you were right there for a lot of that. But going back to your freshman year, so you're coming in, you're transitioning, and you end up getting on the podium as a true freshman, taking an All-American award. In your best kind of words, how would you describe what enabled you to have that kind of success early on in college? Was it like a mentality you took, or was it a physical thing you were doing?
Uh, Probably a lot of it was just the workout partners and wanting to be a part of the team. I had Ricky Stewart. I worked out with Ricky, Kenny Mundy, Matt Scove. There was Alan Lochner. Yeah, it was a tough room and no easy outs. Just spent a lot of time getting better. Just figuring out your own path in the workout room, and finally having those little victories in there. And I always felt like even if I wasn't supposed to win, I always felt like I was supposed to. And got that mentality through growing up. And then when you got to that room, surviving in there as a freshman, and deciding that I wasn't going to take no for an answer, or didn't want to. Yeah.
And that self-confidence is probably the one thing that separates kids. Is even if the kid's technically good, sometimes they have that inner self-doubt and just can't rise to the occasion. Did you ever have problems with that, or were you someone who just kind of always expected to win?
I think I expected to win. I did. And if nothing else, the one thing you can control is your conditioning. So uh, mentally, I was like, I cannot. And then back then it was 8-minute matches, 2-3-3.
Oof.
So
Wow.
hopefully it was going to be a rally in the third if I was behind, which was a lot of times.
The third period is going to be hell no matter what.
Yeah, no
For that
matter
guy.
what.
And then your sophomore year, you have some great matches with another legend, Dave Schultz,
Mhm.
and you beat him at Gallagher that year. Is that right?
That's the first time I beat him.
So what's the vibe like at Gallagher for a duel back in those days?
Oh my God, it was packed house, standing room only. I'll tell you about Gallagher, which I didn't. I was pretty naive. No, I was real naive. So I come to Oklahoma State, and uh, part of my naivety is they said, "All right, all the 150-pounders stand up," which I thought I was going to be the only one. About 4 guys stood up, and I was like, "Oh shit, I've been duped." No, so uh, we're coming out of practice. the night before the OU duel, and I was going to weigh in at the OU match at 58. I knew I wasn't going to wrestle, but I was going to weigh in. And we step out the door, Mark Perry and I, and there's people laying on the concrete with blankets, towels, and it's wrapping all the way around Gallagher, students, OSU students. And I'm like, Perry, what in the hell's going on here? He goes, they're waiting in line for tickets tomorrow. I go, tickets to what? He goes, that wrestling match, you dumbass. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So they camped out. Tickets went on sale for the duel at 8 a.m. and the students were camped out to get tickets. That's how big a deal it was. Yeah, there was no cell phones. There was no, it was like tickets go on sale here. There's no computers like there is now. I mean, the internet, and it's like, nope, you want a ticket, you're gonna have to get in line, and tickets are gonna sell out. So it's sold out crowd. Yeah, it was crazy.
So truly standing room only kind of thing.
Truly. Yeah.
Wow. And when you're warming up for something like that, my understanding is that the wrestling room was in the basement and that you could kind of hear everything going on above.
Oh yeah, you could hear some rumbling. Yeah, you could hear it. You could kind of hear some soft noise. Now, if you were downstairs and something good happened, you could hear it all. But yeah, you heard soft noise. Things are starting to build up upstairs.
How would you guys kind of make your way into the duel back then after like a good warm up in the wrestling room?
Well, then we'd have the warm up in the wrestling room. Then we'd line up and we'd just run out on the mat, circle the mat, and maybe not really warm up. Then we just line up for before the
Face off?
announcement of the duel. Yeah, face off.
So had you wrestled Schultz before that year you wrestled him at Gallagher?
Yeah, he beat me. So he beat me when I was a freshman. I went down to 58 and wrestled him as a freshman in a duel, and Tommy bumped Ricky up to 67 to wrestle Mark. And then that was my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, I wrestled him at the Midlands, and he beat me. I think I wrestled him at a duel. He beat me, but it got closer every time. Yeah.
How would you describe Mark versus wrestling Dave?
Their styles were different. They're both strong. I mean, Dave didn't look strong, but he was strong. He was strong as all get out. Now he wasn't as flexible as Mark, and Mark was a beast. Yeah, they're just different styles. Yeah.
Mark looks so muscular and big out there, and like Dave was obviously, you wouldn't necessarily think that when you look at him.
Yeah, no, he was strong. He was strong.
What happened in the match you beat Dave Schultz at Gallagher? Do you remember that one or?
Yeah, kind of. And it came down to the wire. I think actually he was about to escape to tie the match, and I was in on the leg, or I had his leg, and time ran out. Couldn't break my grip, but yeah, it was a pretty big deal, and the biggest deal of the duel, what people remember most was Mitch Shelton pinning Bannock to win it.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he pinned Bannock, and that place went crazy.
Now we talking OU? We talking Iowa?
No, we're talking about Iowa.
Oh, okay. I thought we were okay. Gotcha.
Iowa, yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I'm my bad.
No, you're good.
He pinned Dr. Death. Yeah.
Okay.
That was another duel that Mitch pinned.
So I want to get to that Iowa duel too, but okay.
Okay,
we're talking about the OU duel.
That was my bad. Yeah, he pinned Dr. Death, Steve Williams, to win the duel, and the crowd went crazy.
To your point, that is a story that came up so many times when I was doing the Smiths, and it was just kind of like out of the scope of the John and Leroy story. But that was, people talk about that like people from Oklahoma talk about that, and I'm like, who the hell's Dr. Death? But everyone in Oklahoma knows who it is.
Oh yeah, Dr. Death, Steve Williams. Um, he went on to be a pro wrestler, professional wrestler. He passed away not too long ago, but yeah, he was pretty charismatic fella. You know, he he had a lot of animation. He got the crowd against you or against them. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, because and then this isn't the same time when I think it's like the Big 8 championships, and I think an Oklahoma State guy pinned an Iowa State guy, and John was the towel boy.
Mona Smith pinned Santana or beat Santana.
Yeah.
And it got so loud in there, there were actually light bulbs busting.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was the
I was
Big
there
Eights.
for that. I was sitting underneath the dang I kind of nuzzled my way, and it was again one of those standing room only venues, and got underneath the table. And I can't remember how old I was. I was probably junior high. I might have been in high school, but I found me a way where I got a front row seat. And when he pinned him, I mean, that place went nuts.
Yeah. Wow. You must have been in high school because there's a video. John Smith was the towel boy for that match.
Yeah,
and it
that's
looks
right. That's right.
And he's like 14. So you were probably 15, somewhere in there,
I was
16.
probably 16 or 17. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Man, I'm glad I brought that up because that by far is, like they say, the loudest Gallagher's ever been is that moment.
Yeah. Well, I can attest that when Mitch pinned Dr. Death, that was the second loudest.
Right there with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in 83, when you guys had the duel with Iowa, that's when it must have, because 84, you guys killed him. Like, it wasn't even close, which is like Gable had just gotten back from Tbilisi. J. Rob's the coach in 84, and John Smith takes Mark Trezino down to the wire and gets him.
With the head snap.
Yeah.
That was the greatest. That's one of my greatest moments in Gallagher is when John head snaps Trezino and no time on the clock and wins it. I mean, I can get goosebumps talking about that. That was great.
Yeah, he does like the little pistols afterwards. He's so excited.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was one of the greatest moments in Gallagher.
Wow. Yeah. Man, just so many that era is just golden era for wrestling. And outside of those matches at Gallagher, you also had a front row seat to one of the greatest trilogies ever, or not even trilogies, rivalries ever, Kenny Monday, Nate Carr.
Carr, yeah. And Kenny always managed to beat him in the duel and beat him in the Big 8. And it went overtime both years in the finals. Wow. Yeah, it was tough.
Overtime both years in the NCAA finals.
Right.
Wow. I mean, it's crazy to look at Kenny Monday's Olympic resume. Then you look and see one-time champ, and you're like, oh, he was battling Nate Carr the whole time. Like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he went, so what, Carr went down for the Olympics, or Kenny just got bigger?
No, he went down. Well, I think Carr was actually wrestling 63 some, and he decided to go down to 49, which he could make it. At that time, Kenny had gotten big enough. And actually, if it wasn't for the lineup, Kenny really probably should have been 57 for or 58 for his junior and his senior year. But for the sake of the lineup, he stayed at 50. But he got big.
Wow. So he was down at 50. Wow. That's yeah. I mean, I know he cut a lot, and if you look at 96 at the Olympics, he was cutting a ton there. But I mean, obviously one of the all-time greats along with yourself. What was it about Kenny Monday that enabled him to have that kind of success over, 15, 20 years?
Well, number one, he stayed healthy for the most part. And he was just a hell of an athlete. I mean, he was athletic, quick. strong. Technique was his technique developed. He had good technique, but his speed was probably his biggest asset early on. But yeah, he kind of had the whole deal when it was all said and done.
And when you guys were training for the 88 trials, what was was it a structured deal, or were you guys just kind of working out on your own, or?
Yeah, we didn't have any coaches. We just said we'll meet at the gym at such and such time. And at the time, Gallagher was getting renovated, and we had to go down to a little abandoned junior high gym, which was a gym slash cafeteria. And we had, I don't know how many mats we had in there, but that's where OSU had practice that year. 87, 88 was down at that little junior high. And yeah, you just meet up down there and work out. There's no coaches, nobody telling you about technique. Just doing your thing.
Was John in there with you guys, or was he working out somewhere else at that time?
No, he was there. I mean, well, uh depending on the practice, because everybody might meet there at a certain time anyway. But if you wanted an extra practice, you had to find somebody and say, meet me here at this time, or I can't make it today at 3. I'll meet you at 5, or let's meet up at 8 in the morning. Yeah.
It's just crazy to think of all you guys, all you studs working out at a middle school. Like, not that it matters, but it kind of does impact the energy of the room. Like if you're at a middle school cafeteria, I mean, it's a little bit different than being in the dungeon, so to speak.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it was I'm telling you, it was just mats in this gym, and it had the stage, it was the old middle school where they'd have their little, or they'd have a play or something up on the stage, and it also served as the cafeteria and the basketball gym. I mean, it was a pretty big building. I don't know how many mats, 8 or 10 mats we had laid out there.
And this is right around the time where you had made your comeback. And when I say comeback, for folks who don't know what I'm talking about, after college, you finished 75 straight wins, 2-time national champ, Big 8 wrestler of the year. Then you go to veterinary school for 2 years. And were you all but off the mat at this point in time?
Yeah, I just did camps in the summer for a job, and pretty much just I think when I was in vet school, the Hall they had the Hall of Fame Classic, maybe a freestyle tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I wrestled in it 1 year, but I didn't work out. I showed up, and I got beat by Melvin Douglas by 1 point in the finals, and I was a little upset about that. He'd never beaten me. And then 1 year I wrestled at the National Open. I can't remember which one it was. Probably 85 or 8. No, it was 86. And I went out there and lost in the finals to Mark.
Because 85, you beat Sheer in the finals, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And what's the loss where you walk over and walk to the payphone?
Okay, so I was doing camps, and they had what they called the sports festival. And I was getting some phone calls about the sports festival if I wanted to go come out and wrestle in the sports festival, which I was like, I don't know. I was doing camps. Well, it fell in a time slot where I didn't have a camp, and they would fly you from wherever you were. You'd fly out there, wrestle in the tournament, and then they'd have a return. Back then, you didn't have to have tickets way in advance, and you could swap them at the gate. You could go, instead of going to Dallas, you could go to Chicago and turn your ticket in and have the full credit for it. So I flew out there to the sports festival, went out first match, made weight, went out first match, and had Rico Chiapparelli. He caught me and pinned me, and I got up off the mat. I walked straight to the payphone, put my quarter in, dialed my dad collect, and told him that I was sitting out of vet school. I said, these guys can't beat me. I'm gonna train for a year. But the school at the time, the school had already asked me if I wanted to take a year leave of absence and train to try to make the Olympic team. And I was like, no, I'm all in school. I'm all in school, and that's it. But that was the day Rico pinned me. I was like, I'm not putting up with this shit. I'm gonna train and I'm gonna win.
What'd your dad say?
Nothing. He was a dead silence on the phone. I
Was
asked
he?
him later. He said, "I didn't think you'd ever go back to vet school." He was, "I thought you were done." Yeah,
Wow. Was vet school a challenge?
yeah, yeah. It was a challenge. Yep, it was busy.
And so, like, when you're in that, you're into it full time, just like you would a wrestling season,
Yeah, it's
basically.
like a job. I mean, it wasn't any different than wrestling to me. It was like, all right, you're gonna put all your efforts into this, and you're gonna um, ignore all the noise around you because this is where your focus is. And that's basically how I treated it. And I couldn't do both.
Right. Well, that match with Rico led to a really cool situation where you're training with Kenny and winner of '87, getting ready for the trials in '88. And how'd you guys decide to go to the Midlands?
I don't know.
You
I mean,
you remember
I
that?
think we just need to wrestle competition. You know, there wasn't we had anything going on, and we were getting ready to go to Tbilisi and then to the tournament in France. So Roger Coulomb or something. But anyway, we were on that tour. Uh, it was just like, we need to get some competition here before we take off on the road.
And did you guys just drive up there, or how? And
No, we
how,
flew.
how
Yeah,
did it
we
go?
flew. Art Martori, I mean, he was great for us. Sunkissed. We wrestled under Sunkissed, and uh, if it wasn't for him, I would have never made it. I can tell you.
He's had an impact on so many people. It's insane to even think about all the people he's impacted. I mean, you have the
Yeah,
Arizona State crew, the Oklahoma State crew. Like, there's and now it's it's not necessarily tied to the school like it was back then, but yeah, I mean, so he was a big sponsor for you guys, and I was just reading Kenny Monday's post, and he said that you guys were kind of sitting around just talking, and none of you had wrestled folk style in years, and you go up to the Midlands, and you were OW, I think.
I won something. I don't know.
And
I
you
did.
guys both won it. And then Kenny Monday says that the next month at Tbilisi, he was OW of Tbilisi.
Yeah, yep. He got the cape. Sure did.
Wow. What memories do you have of going over to the to Tbilisi?
Um, cold, cold. Good. We went. We wrestled in a duel, and I think it was Cherkassk. It was like west of the Ural Mountains. It was in Siberia, or east of the Ural Mountains. And God dang, it was cold. And trying to make weight over there, it was miserable. Just, uh, it was tough. Like, you could see why those Russians were tough, training in those conditions. But uh, yeah, and they packed the house every time you had a duel. Uh, it was packed house.
Yeah, that's where Kenny beat, I believe it was Varayev in the finals, who
Yeah.
was I believe he's a world champ. But yeah, so um and that's what John had said when I asked him about Tbilisi. I think he went in '87, and he said he was just amazed at how kind of like primitive and like second world things were. Like, it was
Oh
pretty
yeah.
shocking. Was that the same
Yeah.
kind of impression you got?
Exactly. I mean, it's cold. Mats were cold. Um, over here we have hot workout rooms. They had cold. It, you couldn't get enough sweatpants and stuff on. You weren't. We weren't. I wasn't prepared for that. I can tell you.
And that's what, like, it's cool. It's just, all these stories of travel, and, obviously in '88, it didn't go the way you wanted. And then you went into being a veterinarian. And what I love is the first time we met, I think I was asking you, like, what's your work schedule? I was trying to fit in an interview, and you said you work 7 days a week. Is that true? You're still doing that?
Pretty much, yeah. I now at least I take probably a day or day and a half for at my farm. Yeah, try to get things done out there.
But for how long do you think you were doing 7-on-7 for?
About till 2020, from 90 to 2020,
Jeez.
30 years.
Oh my God. That's amazing. And that's just like I can imagine the work ethic you had for wrestling if that's how you treat your career. Well, yeah, no, it's awesome to catch up with you, Mike Schultz. I know you have a very busy schedule, so it's great we can make time for this. My last question is, you've been through a lot in your career, the highest highs. I'm sure you've had, some extreme lows like any wrestler has. When you look at just the totality of like what wrestling gave to you, like how would you say wrestling like most impacted you and something that you still work with today?
I feel like it probably, number one, it grounds you. About the time you think you might be getting to a point where you can't get any better because you are the best, and then you'll get grounded. You'll get grounded and humbled, and I think it keeps you humble. And it also at the same time lets you know that hard work does pay off. You may not get the results that you want, but if you'll keep your nose to the grindstone, I always tell my kids, head down, ass up, let's go, just work. I think that's probably the best take home message.
So it's head down, ass up.
That's right. Keep working.
I love it. I love it. Well, Mike Schultz, thank you so much for coming on, man. I wish you nothing but the best and really appreciate you making time for the show.
All right, Ryan. Thank you.
All right, Mike. Take care.
All right.